Today, by popular demand, I've got an interview with one of my good friends back in the Sunset Strip days, Hollywood days, the wild times of our youth. Yes, this is an interview with Mike P-Funk Strong. We gave him the nickname P-Funk because his middle initial was P, right? And it just stuck. Back in those days, we would listen to P-Funk, we would listen to NWA, we listened to Van Halen, we listened to Jimi Hendrix, we listened to everything, right? And this is a great opportunity I had to catch up with Mike. I hadn't spoken to Mike in probably 32 years, right? But we were both out in LA, that crazy, wild time. And this is a look back at our youth, our misspent youth, if you will. And this is a great interview. So here it is. It's going to be two parts because I figured, man, while we're doing this, man, let's cover as much stuff as we can. And if you've really enjoyed this, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. And also, if you want to hear more from P-Funk, let me know in the comments.
All right. Boom.
Take one.
So here we are with Mike P-Funk Strong. He's a great friend of mine from back in the day. Met in Hollywood. He actually lived in the apartment across from me at Lanewood Pines. I was living with Lance Morrison and Keith Howland. We've covered that story. But then I started noticing there were these cool dudes that lived across the hall. It was Mike Strong, Mike P-Funk Strong, Johnny D. D'Agostino, right? And Stephen Hall. And Stephen Hall. And I saw those guys. I said, these guys look a lot more fun than my roommates. And I had a generic beer in the fridge, and I came over and began.
Dude, so that is, I was hoping that we'd get Stevie in here somehow. And so Stevie Hall, haven't talked to him in years. But yeah, dude, so you come across the hall with this can of beer that said, beer. And it was that generic stuff they sold at Ralph's. And hey, dude, I mean, you knew who you could get in trouble with, was the guys across the hall. And so we had a lot of fun there, man. I'll tell you what, hey, do you remember Sylvia? She was the apartment manager.
Yeah. Was it last name Garcia or something like that?
She was like a sweet mama, man. So yeah, wherever she is out there, hello to Sylvia. But yeah, of course, I don't know if you ended up breaking your lease there. I think we did. We ended up moving out of there at some point. But yeah, when you guys came over, I think I'd been there about 8 months. I got to LA in August of '88. It was just two of us. It was me and my buddy Dave. And what really happened, it was totally spontaneous. The plan was, because we're from Boston, let's go down to New York. Let's check out the music scene, and see what it's like. And after a few days in New York, it was kind of like, man, this is like, everything's too expensive. We're going to have to live in New Jersey. We can't live down here. And so we're hanging out one day. We're there for about 2 days. And he goes, hey, you want to go to LA? And I go, yeah, sure. And that was the kind of stuff we did back then. We just seat of your pants, And so we're out there. And there's a few stories about, I'm going to say, what is that? 7760 Hollywood Boulevard. Yeah, that was a studio apartment. What's that, brother?
That was your first studio apartment, 7760
Hollywood Boulevard. So we got to, we just left this is back when you could just buy a ticket one way with cash. You just showed up at the airport. We went to LaGuardia or whatever it was, JFK, and said, hey, one-way ticket, bang. Next thing you know, a few hours later, dude, we're in LA. We're on the Sunset Strip. And we just pulled up on a map. I was like, Oh, the Beverly Sunset. That sounds like hey, that sounds like a nice place. Well, it was a dump, bro. It was right on the strip where if you were heading drive west on Sunset when it starts to curve sort of to the left after Fairfax. There was the Beverly Sunset, which was a total dump. But we got there, and so we went up to the strip and watched some bands and it was like a Friday. It's a Friday night. So, and we saw it was Tough,
wow,
and Brunette. First day there. So we're like, all right, this is cool. It's a little, glammy, and I wasn't really into the glam thing, but like, cool. I dig it. So, long story short, we realized we checked into this horrible motel, and so my buddy Dave, his dad knew a dude who lived in Orange County somewhere, and he said, hey, if you're ever out in LA, blah blah blah. So we said, hey, we're kind of stuck in Hollywood and we're looking to stay somewhere for a few days while we look for a place. And he goes, oh, come on down. So, he was from our hometown. So we met his neighbors and there were a couple, were local girls or whatever. And we had fun with them for a couple of days. And then Monday morning, we looked on the recycler or whatever it was.
Yeah,
and,
recycler.
Found an apartment. It's like $700 a month. So we're like, all right, because we each had a couple grand saved up. We didn't know what the hell we were going to do. So there we go. So we show up in Hollywood after our first weekend in LA, which was eventful. So we got this crappy little apartment. And long story short, I mean, before Johnny and Steve came out about 2 months later, we had a buddy that got in a little trouble back in Boston. And so the police were looking for him. And they ended up kicking our door in one morning. I must have told you that story, but if you don't remember, like one morning, bang, 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 5:30 in the morning. I'm like, it's literally a studio apartment. It's just one big room. So I go to the door. I look through the thing. I can't see anything. I said, who is it? Oh, it's the manager. And I'm like, it doesn't sound like the manager, but maybe it's the maintenance guy. So I go to open the door. Bang! The door hits me in the face. I got 6 guns in my face. The LAPD looking for my buddy, who, wasn't a criminal or anything, but he got in a little trouble and he straightened it out. But they didn't mind kicking my door in. Wow. So, which I wasn't happy about. That was so like 8 weeks in, I already got the LAPD kicking my door in, And we got other police stories, with the pawn shop. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff happens when you're hanging out with the guys from Boston, bro.
Yes, and that's something, because I had gone to Berkeley and I had hung out. I always seem to run into guys from Boston wherever I go. And those guys they're always the most fun guys, willing to go do whatever. Right. Yeah. And so, when I saw you guys, I think I might even have heard your accent or whatever. I said, okay, these guys are going to be fun. Right. But how did you guys end up from that first place and then end up in Lanewood, which Lanewood was actually pretty nice?
Lanewood was all right. Lanewood Ave is between La Brea and like wherever Hollywood High School is, that one block, and it's lined with like instead of palm trees, it's like pine trees.
Yeah,
and like you think you're in New Hampshire or something, right? So. And it was awesome. So, well, we needed a bigger place. It's 4 of us, and it's like one room with a kitchenette and a bathroom. So, and Dave ended up bailing. He didn't want to hang out, and because we'd already kind of gotten into some really bad habits in LA. As far as, dude, it was a party. It was party central from day one. And Dave was like, man, I don't know. He wasn't really into that, and he ended up bailing soon after we got that apartment. But we found an apartment, moved in Lanewood, and that was a great place. There was a lot of great people, you guys, and lots of people from all around, the building were very cool. And that's it. And then after a little while, Steve bailed out. He ended up marrying his girlfriend from back home. They had a couple kids. Dude, he's got kids that are like 35.
Wow.
Yeah, Stevie's had kids for like ever. And I haven't seen him in about 10 years, but every now and then I bump into people. But dude. And then we got that roommate, Doug, who was like a child actor who was in some Rockford Files stuff in the 70s, about our age. So he was like a kid. And then his big movie, not debut or whatever, but he was the guy in what's the name of the
Red Dawn.
And he's like, whoa. So that was our roommate Doug for a while, and we didn't really hang out with him. He kind of kept to himself and like just was gone during the day. It was basically a place to crash at night. But you guys, we hung out a lot, and I mean, there's things we could talk about. I know we've talked, or at least we've heard about pizza toppings and things that
yeah. Well,
things that enhance the mood.
It was the 80s and late 80s, and basically I don't know if you remember this, but we went walking. I think it was me and you went down to Cherokee one night.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe it was me and Johnny, but we went down. Cherokee was a famous street down there where you could
street vendor. There were street vendors. They were selling local plants.
Plants of low quality plants.
Burned up crap.
So we went down there. And there was, the air was like filled with those copters. Back then, LA, the police copters and stuff.
Yeah, they were everywhere.
But we went anyway, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess whoever was at home was watching the news. It was like, dude, you guys, we could see you on the news walking down Cherokee Avenue.
That was me. It was you and Johnny. Now, I haven't thought of that in years, but yeah, I remember that.
Like, dude, you guys were just on the news.
What are the chances? You know what I'm saying? Hey, listen, here's another one. We were walking down where the Hollywood Walk of Fame, across from the Chinese restaurant, the Chinese theater.
Ramens.
Yeah, right. And dude, we meet some dude who was about 6 foot whatever. He looked like the Bumble from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Remember, he was like Johnny Winter. What was he called? He was
albino.
He was albino, right? So we meet this giant albino dude, and he sells us some pizza toppings.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, we're all back at the place. He's playing guitar like he's Joe Satriani, and I'm like, is this even happening? Like,
yeah,
dude. So stuff like that happened. A lot.
You could literally just go, we're going to walk down the street
and see what happens.
And sometimes the horrors, that you would see on Hollywood Boulevard. Can you describe any of that?
Well, there were mentally ill. Listen, any major U.S. city is going to have a homeless problem. And it's obviously way worse in L.A. now than it used to be. I mean, because let's face it, it's warm out. You're not going to freeze to death in the winter. I mean, people freeze to death in the winter, right? So there was a guy, and I remember this like it was yesterday. He used to carry a cross down Hollywood Boulevard, a cross, and he was just like Jesus, and he would carry this cross up, and he was. I'm not saying you got to be crazy to do something like that, but he was definitely not, it was pretty wild. He was like an African American dude, if that's what you want. You know what I mean? Like he was there was another guy that had. These are just some like the harmless crazies. These are the guys. One guy had a ventriloquist doll, and he used to just say the craziest stuff. And with this ventriloquist, so of course Johnny and I we're just talking to this crazy guy because that was a thing. I don't know. It wasn't like we weren't making sport of the guy, but we were used to that. There was some local crazies where we were from. And, they were homeless. And we come from just, if you walked about a half an hour north of Bali, walked across the bridge, and there we are in Everett, Mass. So were there homeless? Yeah. I mean, it was a middle-class town, but so we were used to that. So the ventriloquist guy, the Jesus guy, and then there was the guy. And this ties into Lanewood. We called him Pal. Why? Because he had a baseball cap on that said PAL, which could have meant like Police Athletic League. That's one of those things, right? But it said Pal. Okay. Because there is a such thing as the Police Athletic League. And play basketball and organize sports for the kids. Well, this guy was crazy. And I don't know if we recognized him. I don't think we did, but we're walking by and we're like, hey, how's it going, man? And he pulled this giant knife out. We're like, oh, boy. Like, just kind of gave the guy a, hey, how you doing? And he's like, you got a problem? And we're like, we're all set. We kept going. Dude, about 2 days later, we're on the elevator at Lanewood, okay? This is like, I don't know, we've been there for 8 months, and all this stuff's already happening. We get in the elevator, so we hear somebody coming down the hall, and who steps onto the elevator? Pal. He lived in the building, dude. No idea who he was.
I now remember, this is all coming back to me, and that's why we're doing this interview. Right. That guy used to come beat on our door because I would be in the living room in our apartment. Keith Howland ended up having like a little studio, like an 8-track reel-to-reel
in the middle room,
right in the middle of the living room, and a board and all of this stuff, right? So me taking advantage of the fact that I've got a recording studio in my apartment, I decide I'm going to record some tracks.
Yeah, sure. So why wouldn't
you know, and it's 1988, so there's no modelers. I've got a tube amp in my room with a 57 jammed in front of it and cranked, and then, you know, the cable running into the living room. Well, that guy, that Pal guy, he would, dude, it was like a psycho beating on. It wasn't a, hey man, this, and I would have gone, oh dude, sorry, you know, and that would have been the end of it. But it was like Satan himself beating on your door.
And this is like a couple months in. So we, you know, because we lived at the other place for about 6 or 7 months, from August till March or something. So we're there a couple months, and now we know we got a psycho neighbor who's Pal. And yeah, so you had the pleasure. That's great.
There was
those apartments were set up when you walked in off the hall. It was like a little kitchenette to the side on the right. You're in a little den with a table or something. Big living room and 2 separate bedrooms with their own bathrooms. And so was it Keith that lived in the middle, or how did that work?
Keith had his own room, and I had the room that kind of had a shared bathroom.
Okay, yeah.
So
he had the one to the left, and then you got, all right, because that's what Stevie and Johnny did. They split the room to the right. And, you know, it's just a crash pad.
Yeah.
But once we got somebody we didn't know or, you know, trust, like as a roommate, we made him like, you take the middle room.
Yeah.
So, like, because I ain't, you know.
It came down for us. We had Lance in the middle in the living room.
Okay, yeah.
And he always had a tough go of it because it didn't matter what he was doing. In the morning, you'd have to leave the apartment or whatever, and he'd be sleeping, you know, or whatever. No privacy if you've got a girl in there or whatever.
You had to have one of those, you know, those room dividers or something, you know.
And he didn't have one.
You know what I mean? Hey, bro, that's the first piece of furniture you should have bought.
So yeah, that was wild. And here's the thing, man, because it was LA, you know, everybody in that building, you know, everybody was kind of seemed cool. It was a nice building. It still looks good. You know, today they've kept it up, but there was always that thing of you don't really know who everybody is. And you don't really know, you know, they're not presenting themselves, their true selves. So you could have psycho type situations, you know, with just weird people living in that building.
Which is why you should never date any woman who lives in the same building as you. I mean,
you're thinking of the same story that I'm thinking of.
I think her name was Cheryl.
Oh, okay, so I'm just to keep the we'll keep this story in the back pocket.
no names, like we look at names have been changed to protect the innocent and the guilty.
Yeah. But here's the thing, man. And we'll save this story for another episode because it does involve current members that have been on the channel but here's the deal, man. These sometimes you get involved with these people, these women, and they can do crazy stuff.
Woo! Put the cuckoo back in the clock, baby.
Put the cuckoo back in the clock. Somebody you think is completely normal, and they can do some pretty twisted things. But we'll get into this. Let's just say, and I'll tease it by saying, when I got up the next morning to go to work, and I went to close the door handle,
you saw something.
There was something on the door handle, which was not
a little present.
It was a present there that was basically a gift of some kind of jealousy. That's all I'm going to put out there.
We'll talk about, hey, listen, man, we could do future installments of crazy LA stories.
Yeah. But man,
there's a lot of them.
It's a lot of them. And so now you talking about the pawn shop, because I want to tell you the latest developments of that.
Yes. Yeah.
So the pawn shop that we worked at is famous because it was on GTA 5. It's the yellow pawn shop near Melrose, on Melrose.
And when the cars ripping out and doing donuts in front of the place. I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so here's the deal. I ended up meeting a guy named Al Morgenstern, who was a bass player who used to, get me on gigs way down in Temecula and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
And he said, "Hey, man, if you need a job, I can get you on at this pawn shop." Right? He says, and he basically said, the guy, it's a little bit of a pain in the, took us, it's a
family business, bro.
It's a family business, but I could probably get you a job, but you'll have to take a what was it? Lie detector test.
Oh yeah, that's right, man.
Remember that?
I do.
So I got on at the pawn shop, and they said the only thing they were concerned with was whether you were a thief.
Then something did happen with that.
Yeah, but they with the interview, with the job interview, they basically said, we don't care what you've done as far as partying, as long as you're honest and there's no major, something that you can't, control, essentially.
That guy, he had long blonde hair and kept it in a pony. His brother came down to LA, and we'll get into that. Could be another story because he was one crazy dude. And but yeah, that pawn shop, it's gonna be
what's going on is they've completely stripped the building down to the studs.
Yeah, down to the frame. I looked it up.
Down to the frame, and they're going to turn it into a sports hub. And I saw the other day where Rudy and Ernie had donated a picture of Sandy Koufax.
Sandy Koufax.
And now the latest thing is they've given them a photo of Shirley, who was the mom, and Eugene, the dad, and the two brothers, Rudy and Ernie. And that picture is put in a time capsule, which will be set to be opened in 50 years.
Well, I don't plan on living to be 107.
No, so. I don't either. I wonder, who's going to be there to open that in 50 years? But imagine the building that we worked in, the pawn shop, which we could do a whole episode on just stuff that went, the working in that business, but imagining it now being turned into a bar.
It's wild. I worked at 2 shops. That was the first one. And dude, it'd be almost a good reason to just, and I'm not saying I'm going to do this, but fly to LA on a Friday, have, once they get this place open, have dinner there, hit a few old haunts, get some Zankou chicken for a couple of days, and hit the road by Sunday night. I'm out.
Yeah.
Peace out. I mean, a lot of those places aren't there anymore, but I got the gig at the Punch. So we knew each other, from Lanewood. And one day, here we go. Ready? I got this flyer the other day in the mail. Student painters. Well, I had about 5,000 jobs that first year. And so by the summer of '89, of course, I'm looking for another job, right? I mean, I had the liquor store on Sunset Blvd, which there's 1,000 stories there. Between the people that would come in and meeting women there and all kinds of stuff. My buddy Kevin says one day, because I left that job, he calls me, goes, "Hey man, you still looking for work?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got no gig." He had a gig with student painters. Okay. He goes, "I'm going down Monday, and why don't you guys come?" So me and Stevie Hall went down with him. It's in Santa Monica. So you're about 14 miles from Hollywood. Well, I got about $4 on me, all right? And I take a ride down there with them. And the lady goes to Stevie and Kevin, she goes, "All right, well, you guys go with this crew, and you're going to go paint the house somewhere in Culver City or so, whatever." And she says to me, "And you go with these guys." And I was like, "Can we switch it out? I'm going to go with these guys because they're my ride home." And she goes, "No, you got to go with these guys." And I was like, "Nah, I really don't." So that was my shortest gig ever. I never worked there. And I had like $4 in my pocket. And I thought, well, I can either use that $2 or $3 to take the bus, or I can get like a Snickers bar and a Coca-Cola and walk 14 miles back home. And so I did, because I was like, well, I'm 21, it's LA. It's a straight, you walk, find Sunset, and then just walk all the way out Hollywood. So I get home about, I don't know, 11:30. It said 3 miles an hour, 4 miles an hour, whatever it was. So I get home, and for some reason,
at night,
in the morning. No, so it's like we're Monday mornings for the gig. No, so he picks us up for Monday morning for the start of this job for us. I didn't even meet the people. That was the thing. I was going to go there and go, hey, and if they were hiring people, to paint houses.
Yeah.
So I come home, it's like 11, it's like noon, Johnny's home for lunch for some reason. And I'm like, we're at Lanewood. I go, "What are you doing home, man?" He goes, "What am I doing home? What are you doing home?" I go, "Well, that job didn't work out." He goes, "Oh, well, somebody left the pawn shop, and they needed a new mic, apparently." So I was like, "Well, why don't I go back with you?" It was some guy that worked there, maybe a friend of Bird's or one of those guys.
Yeah, I remember that guy.
Right, Mike something or other.
Yeah, he had tattoos. He was tatted up.
Right. So he says, "Hey, just my Elvis glasses keep slipping." It's my, but yeah, dude. So he goes, "Just come back and talk to the guy." So of course, bang, now I'm working there. So I worked however many dozen jobs in 8 or 9, 10 months. And then the last 4 years, 3.5, I worked at 2 different pawn shops. So I had 1,000 jobs, and then I had 2 jobs. And the pawn shop, dude, one pawn shop story we have to tell. If we don't tell any other ones,
go for it.
You know what it is? It's the SWAT team and the helicopter. So for some reason, Sweet Johnny D and Mikey P, we're going down Cahuenga. We got your truck, the pickup, the red Mazda
B2000,
right, with the cap on the back.
Yep.
That's another story. So these stories are all related. So we're coming down Cahuenga, and it's like 3-4 miles. You just go down Cahuenga until you got to turn left or right. And the whole time, there's a helicopter right above us heading in the same direction. It's like the movie Goodfellas. And I'm like, that helicopter's been over us for like 5 minutes. And he goes, "Yeah, that's weird." And I go, "Well, maybe they're going to the pawn shop. Ha ha. Like it's a joke. Like maybe they're getting robbed." Because it's the end of the day. So we're coming to pick you up. That it's closing time.
Yeah.
You guys had already pulled down the grates over the windows, so you can't see in the place. So it's the perfect time to rob the place, right? So we pull over on the corner. Johnny runs in to get you, and then we're going to take off. And I don't know why we weren't working that day or whatever. Maybe we took a late lunch, whatever. So there I am. I'm sitting in, I haven't got, a care in the world. All the bills are paid. I got it made in the shade. I got the window open, and I see, the helicopter continues to circle. And I'm like, oh, man, they must be really looking for somebody in this area, But whatever, dude, it's LA. The helicopters are up there every day. So I'm sitting there, and I see in the big side mirror is like a SWAT team coming down the sidewalk and doing like a leapfrog. Like one guy would go, and then the next guy would go. And I'm like, wow, this is getting interesting. And right, I mean, like, hey, bro, I've been here. I've already had my fun with the LAPD kicking my door in and all that stuff. Well, I hear. And now I look, and I'm like, oh, well, there's a cop over there too, So I'm like, I'm in the middle of something, and the voice over the loudspeaker says, "Passenger, put your hands out the window." And I'm like, oh, because the truck's running, it doesn't look good.
They identified you as the getaway.
And we were dumb. If we were the getaway driver, you should be sitting in the driver's seat. So we're bad getaway drivers, right? So. And I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, I think I'm passenger. So we go, and I've already had, again, experience with people pointing guns at me from the LAPD. So I'm like, I just put my hands out the window and didn't move for like however long the whole thing lasted. So now they're like, what's the driver's name? And I'm like, Johnny D'Agostino. Johnny D'Agostino. I'm not even blinking. And so he's now in the shop, talking to you, and he hears over a loudspeaker, "D'Agostino, come out with your hands up." Bro, like, is that what you expected? And he goes, he's like, did they just call my name? And you were like, well, you better go out there. Dude, they brought
you gave him Johnny's name.
I mean, hey, bro, it's like, hey, I got my hands out the window. They're going to blow my brains out. I'm like, all right, it's Johnny D'Agostino. He's the driver. It was all because Rudy's nephew, who was about 3 at the time, so he's probably 40 by now. He's this tall, and he sees a big red button. Well, when you're 3 years old and you see a big red button right about eye level, you push that button. That was the panic button. That was the robbery button. And, little known fact, those aren't free. They don't send a helicopter and a SWAT team out for free. So he got fined for that, and he was pissed. I bet you that kid never went to the pawn shop again.
Wow.
Even though it was his nephew. Oh, dude. So, they bring everybody out, and you guys are all up against. So meanwhile, I'm still sitting there like this, not even breathing. I'm holding my breath. And dude, you mentioned Eugene, the old man from the pawn shop. Every pawn shop's got an old man. So he comes walking on. He's like, this old Jewish guy from New York. He's like, God damn it, I'm moving as fast as I can. And he gets up against the wall. Dude, I mean, and they discovered that, okay, there were no robbers in there. It's not a getaway truck. It's just the kid saw the big red button. And man, like I said, what do you do when you see a big red button? You push it.
Yeah.
That was a big time.
That's you just named 2 situations where here the cops are showing up. Well, now we'll flash forward to me joining Shock, right?
Yep.
Traumatic.
I know this one's going.
Yeah, so we might as well, if we're on this theme, we might as well continue on this theme.
We should.
So we're all living at Lanewood, but I end up, joining this band, right?
Want to go through that real quick because the girl kind of.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you have this girlfriend, because we were always meeting women, and hey, man, I mean, she was a beautiful girl, and you were serious about her, and then I don't know what happened. That's your business, but she kind of whenever it broke off, she was like, "You're never going to amount to anything," and you were like, "Oh, really?" So I just know that one day you come, because we had this, the door was open, walk in, and you come in you come in the apartment. You're like, dude, I just got an ad for a band. Take a ride with me. And so I took a ride up, and it was at the rehearsal studio. I remember Greg and Roger being there. Were the horns there?
They might have been.
And that was it. Like, you were like, oh, I'm going to show her, man. And so you joined the band, and then not too much later, I don't know why we would have ever moved out of Lanewood. I think they went up on the rent because it was beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that place. It was my favorite place to live. It wasn't the best apartment. I got one of those, but it was the coolest place.
Yeah. Well,
here's
what I think it came down to temptation, because here's what when we, at this point, we're all working in the pawn shop. I end up in this band, but our whole apartment, everybody split off. It was like the lease was up. And I joined this band, and they go, hey, well, our guitar player's leaving the band house. You can have his room. It's $250 a month or something like that. Like,
possibly go wrong.
Yeah. So I go, okay, well, I mean, it's my only option at that point,
Right.
And then one of the rooms opened up in the band house, and it was like $200 a month. And I said, hey, well, dudes, $100 each a month. And boom, you got plenty of money to, because we're all still working, so you guys move into the Shock House, and it's the first night, and begin.
There we go. So, I mean, like, whatever, we move in, we didn't need any furniture. We always had a, furnished apartment, whatever. So we got our bag of stuff, whatever, we throw it in. A couple guitars or something. And a guy shows up at the Shock House. I think, what were we going to get some beer or something, And meanwhile, we don't know this guy from, Adam. And, he shows up, and I guess his name was Rambo. And apparently Greg knew him or something. So we're like, we'll be right back or whatever. We're going to go. I don't know what we're doing. We come back, and everybody's in the front yard. It's like, oh, here we go again. It's the police. And everybody's on their knees in the front yard with their hands. And apparently he had threatened people, the girls, I think, with a freaking Rambo knife or something. And so, yeah, we decided maybe now's not the best time to go back to the shop. We just kind of kept rolling. It was like, get low and keep rolling. And we went to the rehearsal parking lot and hung out there for like an hour or something. I don't know if we had a couple beers, and we were sitting in the back in the cab, in the back of the truck, huddled up going, are they going to come looking for us? Like, I don't even know what the hell would they been looking for us for? We didn't do anything, But
yeah, but here, check it out. It's 1988 or 89, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And you guys had just moved in. and let's just say that you had christened the new room with herbal supplements.
Oh, that's probably what it was. Yeah, that's
so you guys had, blazed up the room. We left
blazing new frontiers, bro.
Blazing new frontiers, and the room is, it looks like Spicoli's van.
Yeah.
And we roll out to go get beer because it's your first night in the house, and we're gonna start partying.
Hey, we're gonna eat a little pizza and learn about Cuba,
and learn about Cuba. So we go off to get a 12-pack. Literally we're gone literally like 5 to 10 minutes.
It don't take long, man.
And Rambo had threatened with a knife the two girls. There were two girls who may have been in a relationship, living in the middle room of the Shock House.
Off the kitchen, yeah.
And I believe, here's what I believe Rambo had just gotten out of jail.
Yeah.
Fresh out. And he had known Greg, our bass player, who had been in jail. And they had probably been buds, or maybe watched each other's backs, or whatever, been affiliated in jail. And so when Rambo got out of jail, Rambo shows up at the Shock House. Rambo decides Rambo decides he wants some company. The girls did not want to oblige. Oh, man. And that's what I'm guessing went down.
I mean, and I spent a grand total of about 2 weeks there, and I was like, I gotta get out, man. And there was a girl I was with at the time, and I ended up living her with like a year or something. So, yeah, I mean, like, and then Johnny D, of course, lived in the the garage, and it burned down, and that was, yeah,
It's so many stories that there's no way we can cover it really in one episode. But can you remember? Like some of the, because people love to hear about the Shock House and all that. Can you remember some of the parties and stuff? Because even when you didn't live there, we would have these parties
all the time. It was that. I mean, it was a flop house for a rock band in the valley, man. I mean, like, what do you know what I mean? It wrote its own script. So, all right, well, okay, we went to a party. Not at the Shock House one night. It was a Halloween at an art college, and a girl you knew.
Yeah, Cal Arts.
Cal Arts. I was wondering Cal Arts, right? So she called you up, and you guys, still knew each other, whatever, friends. And so you're like, hey, it's a Halloween party. It's a costume party at an art college. So we're like, all right. I had a karate gi because I was doing, kung fu or something. Somebody had a cowboy hat. I think Greg had like a grass skirt, like a hula dancer.
Oh, Johnny had the grass skirt.
Of course he did, because that's going to feature in, because he was dancing. Yeah. Because on the way in the door, like, you feed a horse like a sugar cube. Well, they had these sugar cubes that were soaking in, energy. An energy drink, right? Because you got a lot of energy once you ate one of those about a half an hour later, and it was, hey, picture yourself on a boat on a river.
And here's what I remember is we started to get the sense of, oh God, this is something that we're not going to be able to. We're going to be in a situation where it's going to be out of control.
Look, so the energy, drink starts to kick in, and we're having a good time. And I don't even think the word rave party was part of like the lexicon back then, but that's what it was. Because the music's blaring, the lights are going crazy, and everybody's energized. So, and it's a costume party at an art college. Well, turns out, not a lot of the women there were interested in meeting us, and they were interested in something else. But Johnny's out on the dance floor because he got the really, really energetic drink of all of us, the little sugar cube, and he's dancing with a dude. I already cleared this with him. I was like, dude, you want me to make up a different name?
It was a dude. It was a dude that looks like a lady.
Dude looks like a lady, looked like Andy Warhol, is about 5'3" and 100 pounds, right? So you're not thinking it's a man, and he's dressed up because it's Halloween. And so Johnny's out there like, yeah, man, it's like Saturday Night Fever. He's like blazing, and he's having a great time. And the three of us are like, so it's me, you, and Greg, and we're like, all right. And hey, listen, we're all energetic too, but we're like, maybe we need to get out of here, and we'll head back to the Shock House and make plan B. Meanwhile, there's Johnny. And I'm like, guys, we gotta get him off the dance floor. And you guys, I'll never forget it. You guys go, well, he's your Boston buddy. And I'm like, oh God, you're right. You got me on that one. So I walk out onto the dance floor. So lights are going, people are having a great time. It's a rave. And I said to the dude, looks like a lady, I go, do you mind if I cut in? And I said to Johnny, I go, listen, bro, we're gonna take off. He thinks I'm trying to pick up the girl, and he's like, "Get out of here, dude." He's like, "She's, don't try it." And I'm like, "Dude, first of all, we're gonna leave, and oh, by the way, it's a dude." And he's like, "It's like, dude, she's hot. Get out of here." And I said, I go, "Will you just please let him off the hook?" And the guy goes, Yeah, I'm a dude. And he was like, look, it looked like it's an art college, first of all. He's very diminutive in size. Diminutive, bro. And, he looked like a lady, but look at, man, you had to be flying pretty high to not realize that was a dude.
And that was the thing is it was, you were not of your wits. It was not Johnny's normal de rigueur, and not that there's anything wrong with that Seinfeld episode. Seinfeld, but we knew that if Johnny had taken it any further, he would have probably regretted it.
He's going to discover that the landscaping in the front yard has a tree trunk.
So we pull him out of there, and somehow, and I never even really ever, I think Greg might have stayed back at the house, and I had his car.
Maybe.
Which was a Mercedes. It was an old tan Mercedes, but a nice big car.
63 or something. It was an old Mercedes, yeah.
And it was at that point where I'm like, okay, I am teetering on the brink of being out of reality.
Yeah.
And I have got to focus on getting on in a straight line and just riding the demon back to the shock house so we can get to safety.
You put your thumbs up and you keep it between the thumbs.
And you just focus on that, and anything else that you're seeing, that it's not real.
Yeah, it's like you're saying a novena of prayers, please, Lord, get me home. And and then it kicks in when we get to the place. We get back to the shock house, and this is the same night Johnny D was insisting on, give me my keys. And we're like, first of all, dude, you don't have any more. Where are you going? And by the way, it's 2:00 in the morning by now. We got home around 11, and a few hours later, he's still partying and he's still raising the roof. We're trying to land the plane. We're like, well, long story short, we finally gave him his keys because he wanted to fight everybody. And so he shows up about an hour later he's got a beer box full of coffees, donuts, muffins, breakfast sandwiches, orange juice. And we're like, dude, it's got to be $50 bucks. Like, I don't even know. Nowadays, it'd be like $100 worth of stuff. And we're like, dude, what's that? He goes, USA Donuts, man. I just went down and there was a construction site right next to USA Donuts, and it was like James Brothers Construction. He put it on their tab and brought home all this stuff.
Oh my God.
That took USA Donuts out of our circulation. We couldn't go back there anymore because,
Well, here's a part of the story that's missing, and maybe because when we got back to the shock house, it was a relief. But we get back, and Greg is there, and there's two girls who had just showed up at the shock house, which was a common thing. Just all of a sudden, two girls show up, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. Now we're back in circulation. But you and Johnny came in the living room and started jumping and diving and landing on the floor.
Yeah, that was okay. I went right past that because we put a mattress against the wall. And the game was, how high can you jump? Because there was a ceiling fan going. Can you try to touch the ceiling fan without hitting it? And then, roll onto the mattress or something and not hurt yourself. Of course, we weren't going to hurt ourselves. We could have bounced off, we were bouncing off everything. We played that game for a while, and we walk in the door, throw a mattress against the wall, like, let's do it. And we're like doing cartwheels over a table into a wall, like, bro, I don't know. And
the girls just went, we're out. They immediately bailed, and at that point, I said, okay, that's it. And I went in my room, I locked the door, I put on Steely Dan, and I was gone. But here's the other kicker is Johnny D had cut his hair into a Dutch boy.
Dutch boy, bad.
And so Johnny D was like rocking back and forth and just going, Dutch boy, bad. Dutch boy.
Here it is.
Dutch boy, bad. Dutch boy, bad. For hours, dude. For hours.
He was flipped out of his trees, and so we're getting concerned. I also remember you had thrown in a CD that didn't track for hours. It was Frank and Molly Live, and it was like later on that day when he came back with all this. All of a sudden, you start hearing it kicked in. Boom, ba ba boom. It was like, oh wow, like, dude! It was like 3 hours later. We forgot about the radio, and all of a sudden, boom, ba ba boom. And I was like, oh yeah, the Frank and Molly Live, of course. Oh, dude, that was an epic, one of many epic nights at the Shock House, and this is one great to reconnect with you, and relive some of these moments, because there's things that you mentioned that rattle my brain, and I remember stuff and all of that. But you have any memories of hanging out on the Sunset Strip, like when we would hand out flyers and stuff? I do. And but first thing that reminded me was with regard to Frank and Molly Live, we went and saw Frank because John Billings got us tickets on the list or something. And do you remember this? And because he knew Joey Heredia.
Yeah.
And we went and we're sitting at, I don't know, some tiny club with like 50 people. Yeah. And Frank is standing in front of our table, and it's like a clinic.
Yeah. Lava Lee. I think it was Lava Lee.
Who was it?
The club, I think, was called Lava Lee.
Okay, you know what I mean? Because dude, like right behind us is like it's Greg Bissonette from the David Lee Roth band. It's like, I don't know, 89, 90. And it's small, and it was like Frank literally put his drink on our table. He's like, "Hey, fellas, you mind if I put my drink on your table?" We're like, no problem, Frank. And so, yeah, we owe John for that. And I wanted to mention that because Joey Heredia is ill.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, we should all be praying for Joey. I know they did a fundraiser. I looked it up one day last year. It's out of curiosity. And they had to have a fundraiser, like a GoFundMe thing for Joey, because not only did he have Parkinson's, okay, he's dealing with cancer too. So,
oh man,
yeah. So that's a bummer. But everybody, prayers up for
great drummer Joey Heredia, who played with a lot of great musicians, and especially around that time.
Yeah.
And let's switch over now to the Rainbow. How about the night? How about the night that David Lee Roth was like right across from us? You remember that?
That's that one. That is at the top of the list of things that need to be. Those are stories that need to be told. So, yeah, like all that time, you're up in the Strip, and we go to the Rainbow, and Roth's got like a corner table or something, so he's got a whole bevy of chicks, and so I don't know. I don't remember all the details. The thought was, let's just go stand near there. And it's like a remora fish, you got a shark, right? And there's those little fish that sit behind the gills,
Yeah.
And we're just gonna see what happens.
Yeah.
Boom. Couple of hotties walk up. I mean, dude, this is like, so we're like, hey, what's happening? And like it was me and Johnny. I don't remember I don't know what happened, but like somehow it's me and Johnny with these two girls. And they're like, hey guys, what's happening? You want to party? And we're like absolutely. So in the time it took to go from the Rainbow over the hill to the valley to their house, like 20 minutes, somehow the air came out of the balloon, I mean, like, it was like, I think they were looking for beak food, and we didn't have any beak food. Sorry, girl. We walk in their house, Brad. We walk in their house, we're in like the foyer. Like you walk in the door, there's a little hallway where you can put your shoes or something, take your jacket up before you actually walk in the house. So we're not even really in the house yet. Her dog walks over and takes a leak on my shoes. And I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure this is it. And she was like, if my dog doesn't like you, I don't like it. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? They were psycho. They were psycho. So I was like, are you shitting me? So Johnny's like, all right, give us a ride back to the shock house. Because at that point, we're like a couple miles from the shock house. We're just, so they dropped us off. And apparently we met you later at the house. But like, what did you have, a little adventure yourself?
Yeah. Well, what I remember that night was I was standing between you. I think we're here and Johnny D was here. And I'm looking across at the booth. We're kind of in the in-between area. And David Lee Roth is there with like his bodyguard. And I think he had his ball cap. It was like the ball cap with the hair pulled back, kind of David Lee Roth.
Yep.
And those two girls walk up. And dude, it was like, boom. You guys are instantly making out.
Yeah,
I mean,
show up. It's like, what am I going to do?
It would just boom, and all of a sudden it's just like this, and I'm standing between it, and I look over at Roth, and I go like that, and he's like, I go, it's like shit happens, dude.
Man, we were seaside, sitting, just smoking and drinking,
and so you guys took off, and I think I ended up somehow going with somebody. It took me to some club deep in the valley, but it was like a church. It was a church that had turned into some club.
No, and never a good time.
And I went in there, and dude, it was like Satan himself was having a seance. And I go, man, this is bad vibes. And I get out of there, and it's 1989 or 90. There's no cell phone. You're out in the valley, so there's not even like a gas station sometimes for miles.
Right.
And I just had to kind of start walking. I just walked and kind of in the direction I thought that I needed to go. And I think maybe at some point I found my way or found a payphone or something. But we all ended up reconverging, and it was basically like, okay, this night was a complete wash.
It was the Heart of Darkness, dude. That's the novel on what the Apocalypse Now is based on. The Heart of Darkness, baby.
We took a journey into the heart of darkness and ended up escaping.
It was weird, man. Like I said, those girls went from all over. Like, what am I going to do, dude? A couple hotties walk in and they leap. One of them leaps on me. What am I going to do? Excuse myself. Sorry, ladies. No, I'm in. In for a penny, in for a pound. I'm in all night, whatever you need.
Yeah.
And that did not last. They turned into, like, again, I think there was some substances they were looking to, accelerants that we provide. I mean, we didn't have two nickels to rub against each other.
Yeah. And the thing is, it is true. You would meet somebody at the Rainbow, and it was a long journey going back across over that hill back to the valley. Sometimes I'd be amazed at, I can't believe these girls are still following us back to the house. We just met them like 5 minutes ago.
Half an hour later, you get to the
but it can change. You get back, and it's like that heat of the initial attraction is gone, and sometimes you get back to the house and go, okay, you guys can leave now.
Dude, literally. I mean, look at bro. I've never had a dog take a leak on my feet until then. I mean,
you were pissed, dude.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? She's, if my dog doesn't like you, I don't like you either. I'm like, you gotta be. You're like, what just happened? Well, it happens.
Shit happens when you party.
I mean, hey, should I turn on because the sun is now moved. I didn't do the sun porch because of the thunderstorms, but should I put a light on?
Yeah, if you got a light, go ahead and snap it on. Whoa! We're out of the darkness now and into the light.